Hello and welcome to another episode of The Average EV. Today I am bringing you the charging curve of the 2024 Chevrolet Equinox EV. Let's get into it. Alright everyone, I have been following Altium stuff for a couple months now, trying to get an idea of what the charge profile might look like for the Chevy Equinox EV. First, I was looking at the Cadillac Lyriq. Initially had a pretty terrible charge curve. Cadillac pushed out an update and fixed it. So I was hopeful that that fix would move on to the Chevrolet products. It appears as though it did not. I was then looking at some Blazer EV charge stuff, and it kind of looked like the pre-Cadillac charge curve, but not quite as bad. And then I charge tested my brand new Chevy Equinox EV, and it wasn't great. In my opinion, it wasn't great. So first off, I went and I charged, the car, and it was not a great result. And I thought something had to be wrong. I have to do another test to see if maybe something went wrong. So I drove, I got the state of charge down. I plugged in, I was getting pretty good speeds. There was a cable cooling issue. I plugged it into another unit, and then I got good speeds again. It was about 150 to 154 kilowatts. I'm like, okay, this is right. This is good. It went much higher, much longer than my previous video. And then it dropped down to 120 at around, I believe it was 44%. I'm like, this isn't terrible. At that point, I wanted to redo it so I could get a full, 10 to 80 without being interrupted. So I unplugged. I had to drive it back down the state of charge. I got to another charging unit. It's worth noting that the charger I was having relatively good luck at was one of the BTC new generation EA units. And then the next charge I went to was actually a Signet EA charging unit, but I don't think that was the issue. So then I plugged in to the Signet unit, and I actually got a slower initial speed than I had ever gotten, by almost 30 kilowatts. I thought it was going to be worse, but then it actually ended up getting a little bit better faster and ended up being a little bit better of a result than my first, but not by much. So what I've kind of learned is these charging profiles for the Equinox are erratic, and they are never going to be the same at this point in time. So let's dig into the first charge video here. I did start at 6%, so we're going to start at 10%, and we're just going to have to subtract a minute and 45 seconds from all the other times. It's worth noting, and I don't know how much you all know about electric cars and stuff, or if you want to know, but the voltage is really low, which means you need a lot of amperage to get the advertised charging speed, and that heats up the battery fast. And I think that is what's kind of playing a major factor into why the charging curve is so random and erratic for the Chevy Equinox EV. Here you see we're down at 244 amps when it peaked at 500 amps. So here at 50%, it took us about 29 minutes and 9 seconds, and we added 127 miles of EPA range, but that's a long time, a half hour. At that point, my Volkswagen ID4 would have been at 80% and would have left, which is not great. It's worth noting that the charge speed kind of ramps up all the way up until around 73%, and then it kind of walks down. I think this might be near where the natural charging curve is of the Chevy Equinox. So that's that. Here, let's take a look at the charge curve. So we have a nice kind of ramp up to about 153 kilowatts, and then at around, it looks like 19% state of charge, there's a huge drop off where it at 33% state of charge, it is at around 60 kilowatts, which is not great. And then it slowly just walks its way back up until around 72%. And it's worth noting that at 72% state of charge, it almost has the same charge speed as around 27%, or around 27%. So that's interesting. But what that tells me is if Chevy can figure it out, we could take this big dip and kind of shrink it, if not maybe flatten it, because that would be ideal. Even if we take drop the top speed a little bit, reduce the amperage going in, it could improve the charging. So now what I want to do is I'm going to take a look at my second session. And here we go. This one, I thought something was wrong, but it wasn't wrong. So we had to add a minute to the time. It's never perfect for me with this Equinox so far. So here we are. It is actually going much better-ish than the previous charge session. We're about to arrive at 50% state of charge. And at 50% state of charge, we had a time of 26 minutes to get there. And then it was, still the 127 miles of EPA range at it. So a little bit better, but still not good. Again, the ID4 in 28 minutes can go 10 to 80% state of charge. And then here we have 80% coming up, where it took us 47 minutes, which is 4 minutes faster than the previous charge curve that I had shot the day prior. So here you can still see the same general kind of thing where it goes up, but we had a much lower starting power at 133 kilowatts, I believe is where it started. I had DC charged it, and then I drove to where to bring the battery down, and then I plugged it in. So I'm guessing it's a thermal issue, so it started immediately with lower amperage. That's my guess. I am unable to use my dongle right now because there's no profile, so I don't know what the heat was. Hopefully, when they get that on-car scanner, I'll be able to do another charge curve and have all that data, because I bet the battery was just so hot, and it's saying, please stop giving me current, please. But it has the same general shape where it goes down and then slowly comes back up. This one actually recovered faster and got to a higher charge power than the other charge test video I did, which was very curious. I did intentionally pick a charger that was in a garage to see if maybe if the sun wasn't beating on the unit and the car, that would do a little bit better. That may have played a factor into it, but I can't say for sure if I'm being honest. Now here I'm going to show both charge profiles at the same time. The blue is the one from the first one I did, and then the red is the one that I just showed you. And you can see where the blue goes faster, but then drops down way earlier. And then the red goes a little bit longer, and it still has a similar drop, but then it recovers more. So it's very interesting. And if you're looking at the gap between the two, when the red line for the second charge session is way above, that's the time you're saving right there. That's that 4 minutes. And it can play a factor over a long period of time. But just again, imagine if we take this and we flatten it out, I bet they could reduce the charge time by, I would say, like 5 to 8 minutes. So if we're looking at 47, 39 minutes, 38, that wouldn't be miserable. And honestly, with this vehicle, I would say charging to 50% would be ideal. It has big range, 160 miles. That's almost 3 hours of driving. I think that would be great if they could at least get this curve to stretch a little bit longer to 50% before they ramp it down. I think that would help. Now I wanted to show everyone, just for comparison, so you understand where I'm coming from as an EV driver who enjoys faster charging speeds and shorter waits. Shorter waits at a charge station, is this graph where I added in our 2023 Volkswagen ID4. And you can see that the ID4 is above the Equinox the entire time until about 63%, where they all basically are about the same. But even then, the ID4 sustains it can be anywhere from like 78 to 92 kilowatts all the way through to 80. For people, looking at cross-shopping this cars at this point in time, that's all I can say. At this point in time, the ID4 is a better charger. If you want to go on road trips, I can't really recommend getting the Chevy Equinox at this point in time. Unless you like to wait a long time. I'll be honest, we just took a road trip and we probably needed 30 to 40 minutes at each stop. So maybe it would be okay for some families. But if you don't want to wait a long time, maybe it's worth looking at an ID4 or some other vehicle. I will continue to cover this car, obviously, since I bought it, and any improvements to the charging curve. I'm hoping it's going to come. I'm going to send this to Chevy and see if they'll respond or say that they're working on some sort of fix, because this is just just not okay, in my opinion. It doesn't compete with the other vehicles in its class, and it's a little disappointing for me. I already said that maybe this might not be the car for some people based on the charging right now, but if you only ever drive like a 300-mile stretch to somewhere, it would probably be okay for you if your road trips are less than 300 miles. If you're just using it for commuting, this would be an awesome car. Like, I love the car. It's a great car. It's just the charging's letting it down. But if you're home charging, hey, guess what? The charge profile doesn't even matter. So I'm not trying to scare people out of getting the Equinox. I think people should. It's a really nice car. But I want people to fully understand when they get the Equinox, they're getting a relatively erratic charge curve. Because I can't even confidently say that this is the true charge curve. Because like I told you, I went to the one charge stop and I got way higher, way longer. So it's clearly some sort of thermal issue, which is making the charge not be the same every time. And kind of how I was rationalizing it in my head when I was thinking about this, I like the road trip. I'm going to be stopping multiple times at multiple DC fast chargers, and that battery's going to be hot. And when does everyone travel? During the summer. So I'm likely probably to get one of these charge curves than if I were to maybe redo the charge test, make sure the battery's nice and cool, drive immediately to the charger, not a lot of driving, and plug in. I bet it would shave a good amount of time off, but that's not reality. That's not how people are using their cars. They're going to be using them multiple times if they're going on a road trip, and it needs to be able to give the exact same performance every time. When I plug my Volkswagen ID4 into a DC fast charger, assuming it's not broken, I get the exact same charge profile every time under good conditions. If it's cold, obviously that's a little bit different, but during the summer, I get it every single time. When I drove to Austin, Texas, every single time. And it has to be that way. Consumers cannot get a car with charging that they have no clue what's gonna happen every time. Like, they could get maybe a 40-minute charge session one time, and then get a 51-minute charge session another time. So, Chevrolet, I hope you watch this video. I hope you know that this is not okay. It's unacceptable, and it needs to be fixed. It does. This is a great car. This is a great product, and this is going to put you all on the map if you can get it right. And at this point in time, I just don't think you got it right on the charging. You got it right on the car, but not on the charging. So, everyone, I'm not trying to be negative, but I didn't think it was going to be this bad and this random and this unpredictable. So thanks again for watching. I'd love to hear your comments down below. Maybe I'm completely out of line in thinking that 51 minutes to go from 10 to 80% is unacceptable, but I just don't think it is. So leave those comments down below. If you haven't already, please remember to give a like, a subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow me on X, and I will catch you all next time.